Good evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, the federal government moves to stem the tide of illegal migration of Nigerians to Europe as President Buhari pledges to bring back all citizens stranded in Libya and other parts of the world. Lawmakers in the National Assembly demand immediate action by the executive to end illegal migration of Nigerians and modern-day slavery. Polytechnic lecturers suspend their 15-day-old nationwide industrial action following an agreement it reached with the federal government. And former Bosnian Croat military leader dies after drinking poison during an appeal hearing at the International Criminal Tribunal in The Hague.
On business news tonight, major world oil producers seek extension of crude production cuts as the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries prepares to hold its final meeting for 2017.
On sports news, FIFA holds dress rehearsal for the World Cup draw, denies heated balls claim ahead of Friday's event in Russia.
From Abuja, doubts over early passage of the 2018 budget proposal as lawmakers in the National Assembly insist aspects of the document are faulty.
We begin tonight with the outrage trailing media reports of the plight of some Nigerians who migrated illegally to North Africa en route Europe and other parts of the world. The President Muhammadu Buhari has announced the decision to repatriate all of them and has also vowed to reduce the number of Nigerians who travel to Europe illegally through the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea. A statement from the President's media aide says, "For people to cross the Sahara Desert and Mediterranean through shanty boats, we will try and keep them at home. But anybody who died in the desert and Mediterranean without documents to prove that he is a Nigerian, there is absolutely nothing we can do." End of quote. The President was speaking at an interactive session with members of the Nigerian community in Côte d'Ivoire on the sidelines of the ongoing AU-EU summit, where he said all necessary steps will be taken to stem the tide of illegal migration by Nigerians. He asked Nigerians in Côte d'Ivoire to be good ambassadors in their host country, warning that the embassy will not hesitate to repatriate those who tarnish the image of the country abroad. The announcement by the President in Côte d'Ivoire is already eliciting some response back in Nigeria. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo today met with key players in the Immigration Department to proffer solutions to illegal migration to Europe and the fate of Nigerians in Libya. At the meeting were ministers, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, heads of NAPTIP and the Refugee Commission, amongst others. According to the Vice President, the COSDOL meeting is a prelude for government strategy towards solving the problem facing Nigerians that embark on often dangerous journeys.
The President issued a statement in Ivory Coast where he mentioned specifically that he was concerned, of course, about the issues that are arisen concerning the girls who, or the ladies who died in the very unfortunate incident while obviously trying to while obviously trying to migrate. Obviously, the President is very, very concerned about, and all of us as Nigerians are extremely concerned about it. And I believe that that is exactly the reason why it's important for us to address the issue. Of course, there are long-term issues here. There are issues around ensuring that all the economic conditions are right for people and all that. Now, these are relatively long-term issues. Most countries have their own economic difficulties. But I think in the short term, we must make sure that people do not endanger themselves in the way that some of the young men and women have endangered themselves.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo still on the issue of illegal migration. The National Assembly wants the executive to go beyond mere promise of action, finding actual solutions to illegal migration and modern-day slavery in Libya. Both arms of the National Assembly considered the issue in separate motions, with the House of Representatives asking the executive to liaise with the government of Libya to address the issue. In its resolution, the Senate called on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to invite the Libyan ambassador to Nigeria to discuss how to end the reported slave trade in Libya. Our correspondent, Lanre Lasisi, reports.
It's a trend that appears unrelenting. The illegal migration of young people from parts of Africa to Europe in search of greener pastures. Nigerians form a large part of these migrants, making the perilous journey through the deserts of Libya and on the Mediterranean Sea. Frequently, hundreds die at sea and in the desert. Early this month, the bodies of 26 Nigerian girls aged between 14 and 18 were discovered in a Spanish warship carrying 375 migrants to Europe. Thousands are also said to be in detention centers across Libya. Recently, a video emerged showing some of the migrants being sold to North African buyers. The matter is raised as a motion in the Senate. The lawmakers call on President Muhammadu Buhari to use the opportunity of the ongoing European Union and African Union summit in Abidjan to table the matter before the Libyan delegation.
The Senate notes with utmost concern and grief that this completely stone-age, inhuman and barbaric act is going on today within the 21st century civilization.
As a country, truly, I think it's a slap on the face of all of us if Nigerians can be treated in this manner. As somebody said, Ivory Coast, that is not as big as us, is taking actions to see how they can bring their own citizens back.
The Senate also calls on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to invite the Libyan ambassador to Nigeria and discuss how to end the ongoing Libyan slave trade. A similar motion is also considered in the House of Representatives.
Further note that the footage of the auctioning of the black Africans in conflict-torn nation sparked outrageous across the world, with thousands of people taking to the street of Paris, France, to protest against the modern-day slavery. And in reaction, the African Union on November 17, 2017 called on Libyan authorities to investigate the matter.
If indeed the numbers have escalated drastically, it just shows that there's something wrong that we are all doing. If there were enough jobs and if the economy was stable enough, we wouldn't have our youngsters deciding to embark upon these journeys knowing fully well that they might lose their lives.
The House is also urging the executive to liaise with the government of Libya with a view to finding lasting solution to the issue of illegal migration and slavery in Libya. A joint committee of the House is also to interface with the Foreign Affairs Ministry to identify the factors that encourage people to embark on the dangerous journey. They are also to prefer solutions to discourage intending migrants, as well as recommend how Nigerians caught in the web can be returned home. Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Let's take a further look into this disturbing issue. We have joining us from our Abuja studios live the Director General of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, Mrs. Julie Oka-Donley. You're welcome to the program. You're welcome to the news at 10. It does seem like it took the media reports on the Libya slave trade and the outrage trailing it for the federal government to announce decisive action, as we've heard the president today, on this illegal migration issue. What do you say about that?
Well, the sale of human beings in Libya market has really caused a great deal for concern in the Nigerian government and in the world generally. And the federal government has resolved to do something, to take drastic measures to repatriate as many Nigerians that are willing to come back, not just from Libya, but from all over the world.
And what steps are to be taken to give effect to the decision announced by the president in Cote d'Ivoire today on this matter?
Yeah, we also had a meeting with some agencies, some relevant federal government agencies, had a meeting with the vice president today, and he practically said the same thing the president said in Cote d'Ivoire, that as many as those who are stranded in various parts of the world will be repatriated back to Nigeria.
Now, regarding the 26 Africans recently buried in Italy following their death at sea, can you confirm now how many of them were Nigerians?
Well, right now as we speak, the Italian government has positively identified just 2. They are unable to identify the rest of the 2024, and so they say. And they were able to identify 2 because relatives of the 2 positively identified them as Nigerians. But because most of them did not have their travel documents on them, they are unable to conclusively identify the 24 as at today.
Now, this is a perennial problem. I mean, we've had hundreds of Nigerians trying to cross the Mediterranean, making that dangerous journey via the Sahara Desert all the way to Libya and sometimes Morocco. Whose fault is it that people are not heeding, warnings about staying back in Nigeria and about how dangerous these journeys are? Either you're going through the Sahara or you're trying to cross the Mediterranean.
The truth is that the major factor responsible for this is ignorance. Most of these people that try to cross are usually recruited from the rural communities where they have little or no access to the internet. So they are unable to see all of these graphics that we are privy to seeing, that we have the opportunity to see here. And so the greedy criminal network gangs take advantage of the fact that these are illiterates that are mainly not schooled, and these are people who are largely ignorant, and uneducated. So they take advantage of that to a very large extent.
And what's your organization, what's your agency doing about this? Because I know NAPTIP works at the grassroots. So you're meeting with these people face to face. What you tell them?
Well, we counsel them and tell them that there's really nothing to look out for outside of Nigeria. And the truth is, NAPTIP has embarked on a massive awareness campaign. We've been to we are going to all the communities and engaging with the community leaders from state to state, all 36 states and the FCT. That's our target, and we've already started, and we're making progress. And we're coming up with all sorts of strategies, to create awareness. Trying to do some documentaries that will actually take to the communities, not just for the youths, but also for the parents who are really ignorant of what is going on and what is happening to their children.
But are you seeing the impact of some of this work that you're doing? Because it's becoming more obvious that people are ignoring the dangers of traveling. I mean, what they see is people coming back and, they're coming back well-dressed, well-fed, and all that, despite the horrors of being in a Libyan detention camp. Are you seeing the impact of the work you're doing in the rural areas?
Yes, I would say I can see the impact that we're doing in some of the communities we've visited, because when we started this awareness campaign, we started getting a lot of phone calls of people, who were confronted by these traffickers to travel, and, they got suspicious and called NAPTIP. I mean, we've been able to get some calls lately, so at least it shows that people are beginning to understand what is going on.
And I don't want to believe that NAPTIP is working alone. You must be liaising, of course, with all the other countries that these people are going to. Take, for instance, Italy, where most of these migrants were headed towards. Talk to us about the where we are at in the discussions between Nigeria and Italian authorities concerning the status of people who are trying to get to Europe and who are being caught at sea.
Well, we're working with the Italian authorities. We work with, almost all the destination countries where Nigerians usually go to. But the truth is that we've been asking for more information from them, information sharing, which has to be really as transparent as possible. Because the truth is we work on what we hear and what we know. And so NAPTIP has been trying to propose, joint investigations, joint information, mutual legal assistance, and things like that, And of course, the most important thing is the information. They need to share more information with us, and that has always been our point.
Mrs. Julie Oka Donley, thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much for having me.
In part two, after the break, President Buhari seeks confirmation of 10 nominees by the Senate as members of the Code of Conduct Bureau. Stay with us.